He is one of the best baseball players in the history of the game and revered in Kansas City, and why not? He's Baseball Hall of Famer George Brett here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, George?
Rich, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am better for seeing you. I appreciate you taking the time because I'm sure you get a lot. I'm sure you get a lot of calls this time of year.
Well, it's a lot more fun now. You know, last year the Royals won 56 games all year. They've already won 56, so it's been a lot more fun around Kansas City.
I bet so. The reason why I bring up this time of year is the anniversary that just passed.
Oh, my God,
Wednesday.
that's right. Yeah.
Yes, sir. It was 41 years ago Wednesday, George, when you strode into Yankee Stadium on that day and brought your bat with you, George.
Yep, I brought my bat and it had a little too much pine tar on it, which I didn't know at the time.
So let's just drill down on this, if you don't mind, a little bit. What were you thinking as you strolled into Yankee Stadium's batter's box against Goose Gossage with a man on, down a run, and 2 outs in the 9th inning on that day in 1983, George?
Well, I knew Goose. I faced Goose enough over my career that he was going to throw it as hard as he could, and that's all I knew. I didn't know if it was going to be inside, outside. He claims to this day that on that pitch he was trying to hit me in the neck, and the ball was up and in, but I was just trying to hit the ball hard somewhere. And you know, if I hit that ball in Kansas City, it might hit the bottom of the wall. The right fielder might have caught it. But Yankee Stadium, the fences are so short in right field. I tomahawked it, and it barely went out. And, man, I ran around those bases feeling pretty good. Sat in the dugout, felt pretty good. The longer the umpires talked out there on the field, the longer they were talking, and Billy Martin was standing there, and they had a bunch of guys on the team standing around. But the longer they talked, I thought I was in trouble. When they measured the bat, like I can see right now across home plate, I'm going, what are they doing there? But the umpires probably know how wide home plate is. And from what I found out after that event, you cannot have pine tar more than 18 inches from the bottom of your bat up to the top of your bat. That bat was 23. So I missed it by 5. And the umpire called me out, and I went berserk.
Yes, you did. Did you realize at the time you were going as berserk as you were going, George? In the moment?
I don't even. I swear, Rich, I don't remember sprinting out there, throwing my arms up. I do remember pointing my finger at Timmy McClellan, and then Joe Brinkman grabbed me from behind and started dragging me, and that's what really kind of pissed me off, because I didn't know who it was, and it was kind of hurting a little bit. And he just kept dragging and dragging and dragging, and I was just trying to get away. I wasn't going to hit Tim McClellan. He's 6'5", had a bat in his hand, shin guards, you know, he had a mask in his other hand. If I would have hit him, I would have been kicked out of baseball forever. But I was going to give him a good piece of my mind, and when Joe Brinkman grabbed me from behind, that's what made everything escalate. And you know, it's funny. I realized I knew I was doing the show today, and yesterday I got a bunch of calls and texts. Hey, congratulations on the anniversary. And I'm going, what are you talking about? I didn't even.
You didn't even know that Wednesday was the anniversary.
Huh. I didn't even know until I started getting texts.
You know, it's kind of amazing how it still stands today, and you know, Billy Martin being involved in the Yankee dugout, and apparently they. You know, Greg Nettles, who was once popped for that sort of thing when he was on the Minnesota Twins a couple years before, the Yankee third baseman noticed your bat, and they were just going to utilize it against you at the most appropriate time to try and, you know, catch you, not knowing it would be a top of the 9th go-ahead 2-run shot off of a fellow future Hall of Famer and Goose Gossage. Did you know that the Yankees were kind of staring at your bat, George?
No, I had no clue. And we had played the Yankees like 10 days before in Kansas City. And, you know, I'm sure I got some hits, but never, you know, you might have hit a 2-out double, 2 outs, or, you know, you might have got a single with nobody on. They weren't going to do it then. They were going to wait for the right moment. And that was about as right as a moment as you could possibly have. A game-winning home run in the top of the 9th inning. And they said, okay, now let's do it. And, you know, I played golf this weekend with John Sherholtz, a fellow Hall of Famer. And John was the general manager of the Royals then, and he and Dean Taylor wrote a letter to then President Lee McPhail.
Yes.
And protested the umpire's decision. Little did I know about any of that stuff. And then about a week later, Lee McPhail came out and said, no, the home run counts. George gets credit with the home run, the RBIs, the Royals are winning. About 10 days later, 2 weeks later, we had an off day on our way to Baltimore. The Yankees had an off day at home. So we had to fly to New York and finish the game from that point on.
Yes, and
I was kicked out of the game, so I didn't have to go. I went to some little Italian restaurant right by the airport, LaGuardia, watched the game on a little TV, and then met everybody back on the airplane.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions about your whereabouts for that game.
Well, I was kicked out of the game, and my manager in '83,
Dick Hauser.
Dick Hauser.
Yeah.
Dick said, "You're not going to the game. You're not even going to set foot near the stadium. So you can sit on the plane, you can go to the terminal and have something to eat." Larry Amici, Don Amici's son, was our travel guy with TWA. We jumped in a cab and went to some little Italian restaurant right by the airport, sat there at the bar, had a little snack, a couple beers, and then the game was over in 10 minutes. And by the time they got back, we were on the plane waiting to go to Baltimore.
Yeah, nobody was in the stadium. Ron Guidry was in center field. Mattingly was at second base. Billy Martin was pissed. Quisenberry closed things out. You know, it was a W for the Royals. And, it's interesting. You mentioned how George Brett here on the Rich Eisen Show, how you got suspended for your reaction.
I never got suspended. I just got kicked out of the game.
You got kicked out.
I
Okay.
never got fined. If I got fined, the Royals paid it.
Okay, so I
got kicked out of games before, and I never paid a fine. Back then the fine might have been $500 or $1,000. I think if I ever got fined, the Kansas City Royals paid it because I never knew about it.
Well, you were ejected from the game. Better way to put it, obviously, right. More accurate. Also, I think we saw a photograph early on in this conversation. Rocky Colavito, your coach, he was a hitting coach then. He got ejected as well for arguing with the umpires. I believe that might be Rocky right there, potentially.
No, that's Dick Hauser.
No, that's Dick right there. Okay, so
that's Dick right there, yeah.
So Colavito got ejected as well, and also got ejected was fellow future Hall of Famer Gaylord Perry because I think he ran off with the bat. George, is that what happened?
But he did. Gaylord was the first guy that I played with that was a memorabilia nut, and supposedly when he won his 300th game, he wore 9 different jerseys, and then he sold every jersey as a game-used 300-win jersey, So Gaylord all of a sudden saw dollar bill signs in his eyes as the umpire is holding the bat, and we're out there arguing. Gaylord rips the bat out of the umpire's hand, and he starts running with it, and then all of a sudden he throws it to Steve Ranko because the security was getting around him, and then Steve threw it to somebody else. They took off running to the locker room. And from what I was told, I was still on the field arguing, the security people in New York are on the radio. Lock the locker room door. The bat is coming that way. We got to get that bat, But Gaylord tried to steal it, which made me look even more guilty. Thanks, Gaylord. I hope you're getting a good laugh out of this in heaven, Gaylord.
But is it true? Is it
guilty? Trying to steal the evidence.
Is it true though? You eventually got possession of the bat back and gave it to the Hall of Fame. Is that true, George?
Well, what happened is Lee McPhail ended up mailing me the bat back, and they mailed it back through Emory Air Freight in Detroit. And I got the bat, and the first thing I did is I cleaned it up a little bit, and I put a little red line where 18 inches was. And I'm using that bat, and Gaylord Perry says, "George, are you crazy? That bat's worth a lot of money." So I took the bat out of play. Anyways, down the road, Barry Halper, Barry, the big collector out of New York.
Yep.
He wanted the bat. I was getting calls from so many people wanting to buy the bat from me. I ended up selling it to Barry Halper. And then about 2 weeks later, I came to my senses, and I said, that bat belongs in the Hall of Fame. So I gave Barry back his money. He gave me the bat, and I gave it to the Hall of Fame.
Where it currently is.
And that's where it belongs. That's where it belongs.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Barry has the ball, though, that you hit, and Goose Gossage autographed it in the most profane manner, George.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, Goose, by the way, set a record of cursing on live Rich Eisen Show air about 5 years ago, but I'm sure that doesn't surprise you.
What was he ranting
I don't
about?
know. I kind of don't remember because I was just blacking out for how many times he dropped F-bombs. But apparently he put one on the ball saying, Barry, I threw the effing thing is what he wrote. That's how it apparently is what he autographed the ball. But it's amazing how it endures 41 years later, George. You know?
Well, you know, it's funny. That's what I'm remembered for. And prior to that, I have to remind everybody that I was the guy with hemorrhoids in the 80 World Series. And everywhere I went from 1980 to July 24th, 1983, I would get on the on-deck circle on the road, and all I would hear is hemorrhoid jokes. Well, the pine tar incident is the greatest thing that ever happened to me because now, from July 24th, 1983, even till today, I'm the pine tar guy. Now, what would you rather be remembered for between those two things? Hitting a home run off Goose to win a game in New York, or the guy that suffered from hemorrhoids in the 80 World Series? Come on, what would you rather be remembered for, Rich?
I'd rather be the pine tar guy, George Brett.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's probably the best thing that ever happened.
The great George Brett here on the Rich Eisen Show. I see you're rocking the KC Heart shirt. You must be really fired up about what you're seeing out of the current Kansas City Royals, George.
Yeah, it's crazy. Last year they won 56 games all year, and this year they've already won 56. They went out and got some veteran pitchers, which has really helped. And Lugo and Waka, Cole Reagan's coming into his own. Brady Singer's pitching well. Young guy Alec Marsh is pitching pretty good, but we might have one of the best young players in baseball in Bobby Witt, and he's been on fire lately, and just a great guy, a great competitor. The Royals signed him to a really long contract, and hopefully he'll be able to finish his career in Kansas City. He's something really special. You know, we had young guys come up before, and Moustakas and Hosmer, and boy, you think these guys are going to be Royals forever. Well, it doesn't happen. This guy is the best young Royal player I've ever seen in my life.
No kidding.
Yeah, he is unbelievable. For what he can play shortstop, he runs the bases extremely well. He plays hard. He stretches singles into doubles into triples. He's unbelievable shortstop, hits for power, hits for average, got a great arm and covers a lot of ground. I mean, he's a 5-tool guy. He's fun to watch. And like last year, Rich, I'll be honest, I bet I went to 25 home games. I bet I've already been to 40.
No.
And we have 20 months to go.
No kidding.
And I will not. He's like Bo Jackson. I will never go to the bathroom, never turn my back, never get in a conversation when he said, I watch. And he had just last week, he had 3 games in a row or 4 games in a row with 3 hits in a row. And then he got a double his first at bat yesterday, drove in a run. And then yesterday he got 3 more. So right now in the second half, he's probably 12, 13 for 16 or 17 in the second half, and playing the best shortstop I've ever seen.
So you just mentioned George Brett here on the Rich. You just mentioned Bo Jackson's name. What's the most amazing thing you personally witnessed Bo do, George?
Oh God, the throw in Seattle, baby, throwing out Harold Reynolds at home plate. Some of the home runs. I was in his batting practice group before games, and just being in awe of how far he could hit the ball. But the one thing that I couldn't get anybody to try, and we had a game in Baltimore, and he was playing center field, and he was running full speed to left center. He caught a ball backhanded, kinda, and was 5 feet from the fence. Didn't want to run into the fence. Didn't want to slide. So he just kind of jumped up and ran along the fence and jumped off and landed on his feet. And took about 3 steps on the fence. And the next day in batting practice, I'm out there and I was going to try it. And then I said, I would go up there, I'd put 1 foot on there and I'd fall down, break my arm and never play again. So I said, if anybody will do this, I'll give them $100. We couldn't get anybody to do it. Nobody.
Well, you know, I read the recent biography on him by Jeff Pearlman, and just was one page after another, just stunned by the stories that people tell. And this is before, you know, George, there were phones, and before there was anything that could actually record this stuff, and how the stories are kind of like fish stories. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, but they're all true when it comes to Bo.
But it's amazing. I used to go to all the home games in L.A. when he played for the Raiders, and I would be on the sidelines. He made sure I was on the sidelines, and I was at the game when his hip came out of socket and went back in against the Bengals. And it was the far sideline, and he came back, and I walked over to him, and he was sitting on the bench, and he was in some pretty good pain. I said, "You all right?" He said, I'm not good. My hip came out of socket and went back in." And so I was talking to their team doctor because they trained in El Segundo, where I grew up and went to junior high. They bought my junior high school. And my family had a restaurant down in Manhattan Beach at the time, and they all hung out there. So I knew a lot of the Raiders and front office, Al Davis, Al Ocasel. I knew all those guys. And so I go up to the team doctor, and I said, "Yeah, Bo said his hip came out of socket, went back in." And the doctor said, "That's impossible." Guess what? With Bo Jackson, nothing was impossible. So he was amazing.
You were there that day, huh, George?
I was at the game. I went to almost every home game.
Huh. And
I was still a Chiefs fan, but I was a Bo Jackson.
Listen.
How can you not be a Chiefs fan living in Kansas City right now?
What's your thought? Do you know Mahomes? You met him?
I know him. I was at practice yesterday. I went to the Chiefs practice and I saw Andy Reid and Brett Beach, the general manager, had a nice little conversation with Patrick. Travis and I and Patrick have played golf a few times together. I helped Patrick get in my country club here in Kansas City, and so we had a nice little visit between plays, and took my kids to the Super Bowl in Phoenix, and we went to the post party with the Chiefs. It was if you live in Kansas City, this is a really exciting time to live here.
My gosh, George! I mean, you
and their backup quarterback this year is Wentz.
Yeah, that's right.
Carson Wentz. I mean, I was at practice. You should have seen this guy throw the ball. It was unbelievable.
Well, I mean, you brought the
and
first.
He's going to play 3 plays all year, probably.
I know, right? Well, I mean, knock on wood for Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, you brought the first championship to Kansas City. You could say easily, and.
Oh, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl back in the early.
For baseball, I guess, right in the '80s. So and the Chiefs won obviously in Super Bowl IV. So to see them now have a shot at a three-peat and maybe create football history, George, in Kansas City, that is huge.
It's incredible. It really is. I mean, I don't know how many people go to the Minnesota Vikings, camps. I don't know how many people go to the Tampa Bay camps, but there was probably 6,000, 7,000 people there yesterday watching the Chiefs practice for 2 hours on the field. And St. Joe is a good hour and 10 minutes from Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing.
I love it. Before I let you go, George Brett, my youngest son, left-handed hitter, when I wanted to sort of teach him about, staying back and make sure that you use all of your lower half and to swing, I would show a photograph of you to him, George, and just keeping hands back and just this is perfect, quintessential. And I'm wondering, who do you think has the best left-handed stance in Major League Baseball?
Oh my God,
today?
That's a tough one. I only follow the Royals, to be honest with you, Rich.
So then, what about Ohtani? Let me throw Ohtani's name at you, George.
Ohtani, yeah. Well, obviously, he's making $70 million a year. He's doing something right. He's doing something right. No. That guy can hit. I mean, it's not a Charlie Lau type swing, which I had, which was top hand off, the weight shift, rhythm, and all that stuff. Head down to contact and swinging through the ball. Ohtani's more of a, get your hands out and then just whip it around. But man, I tell you what, he can hit. See, if that was me, my top hand would be off my bat already. And I would probably be leaning forward with my upper body where I wouldn't be leaning back. But I'm not as big as strong as him. It's amazing. I in order for me to hit the ball, I had to swing through the ball and I had to have a weight shift, and I generated all my power with my legs, not my arms.
Would you counsel him to not pitch anymore, George?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, go ahead and pitch. We signed a guy this year, first pick, Jack, somebody out of Florida, big left-hander. I think he had 38 home runs last year, and he's a pitcher, and I hope they let him do both. If he fails as a hitter, at least he can pitch. If he fails as a pitcher, he better hit. Give him $7.5 million. He better be able to do something.
That's right. Yeah. George, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Okay, Rich. I enjoyed that.
Hey, you know, our studio is right around the corner from George Brett Field. We're in El Segundo. So if you ever come home.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Rich Eisen Show studio right here in El Segundo, California.
Well, where do you live? Where do you live out there? In El Segundo or Manhattan?
Oh, no. I'm a little more north, but we're on the campus of what used to be DirecTV, now AT&T. We're right by the airport. We're right by the Lakers, now the Chargers facility, and George Brett Field. So we're here.
El Segundo's a cool little town, isn't it?
It is that, and we love being here. The show turns 10 in October, and we've been here for a decade. So if you ever come home, let me know, man.
Well, I'm gonna be out there the end of August. I'll be in Santa Monica. My wife and I are doing a little vacation out there. And growing up in El Segundo, I still have friends. I get out there once a year. We usually play golf at Bel Air, Big Canyon, and Virginia Country Club. So if I'm out there, I'll get a hold of you.
Please. We had the Little League champs in here a few months ago.
Oh, God. How was that?
Awesome.
Danny Boley's a good friend of mine who was the manager, and I would send videos to the kids every day. I watched every game of that, and I was so excited for El Segundo to win a Little League World Series.
It was awesome. We had them in here, all the kids, and so we're all about El Segundo here on the program. Thanks for the Zoom, George. You be well.
Okay, you got it, pal.
You got
Good
it.
seeing you.
That is George Brett, the great George Brett, Baseball Hall of Famer, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.